Anthony Mikolojeski. I love your last name, by the way. I'm just going to say that right now.
Well, thank you. Hello,
Well,
Jeffrey. Thank you for having
welcome.
me.
Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to Something Super Spiritual. I'm so happy to have you here. We've been kind of seeing each other through the social media feeds over the last few years, and I feel like I already know you. So it's like catching up with an old friend after a lot of years go by, you know? So thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you.
So you guys, Anthony here is with us. He is known as the Asheville Medium, Asheville, North Carolina. And Anthony has Anthony's pretty amazing. Evidential medium, psychic medium, animal communicator, teacher. You teach evidential mediumship. You teach psychic work. You teach in Lilydale. I love Lilydale.
I do too. Thank you. Yeah, I do all of that. And I also do animal communication. I don't know if we covered that or not, but and I have recently in a last couple years realized that I can do some physical mediumship. So I'm still in the process of kind of learning about myself from that perspective. I think it takes years to,
Oh,
first of all, develop that, but understand how to communicate with it. And but it's been great. It's been exciting. And yes, I am teaching at Lilydale this year. So this is my first year. And I'm just proud and honored to be teaching. I'll be teaching at a conference with five of my other colleagues. Susan Barnes, who heads up the conference, which is called Metaphysical Medley for all
yes.
of you listeners. We'll be hosting a 5-day course, and I should say conference, from June the 16th through the 20th. And so for those listeners that have always, they could either be a beginner or maybe an established medium, this gives them an opportunity to come and experience different modalities of mental and physical mediumship. So we'll be teaching all of that in the 5 days. And, in the evenings, we have special things going on at the conference as well. And then the following week, well, that weekend after the conference, we'll have opening weekend. And then the following weekend, I have two different classes, which I'm teaching in June as well by myself. So I'm excited.
I'm excited for you. Yeah. I quickly before we get started, you mentioned physical mediumship, and there may be some people here who might not have heard that just yet. They're familiar with
Sure.
the mental medium, the mediumship, like that we do, that Teresa Caputo does, Tyler Henry. What's physical mediumship for those that might not know that yet?
Well, there's two different forms of mediumship. There's mental mediumship and then there's physical mediumship. And physical mediumship was actually the beginning of spiritualism in the 1800s and was more popular then up to the beginning of the 1900s and then fizzled out into more mental mediumship. And so physical mediumship is having the spirit world be able to move and create things through their energy, through the medium. And, you know, sometimes, we could look at those examples. Like we see them on TV, we see them on movies, and we see them from a fear perspective. And I just want to let the viewers know that, physical mediumship is all about healing, just like mental mediumship is. It's just the proof of the physical phenomenon that the spirit world can create. So there's, different forms. There's table tipping, there's automatic writing, there's slate writing, there is transfiguration, there is, spirit cabinet where the medium sits in the cabinet and the spirit blends with the medium to the point where they can actually use their vocal cords to speak through them. And sometimes the transfiguration can happen at the same time where the spirit can actually create a veil where the spirit that's communicating will present themselves over the medium's face, which is really quite interesting to watch.
Oh my God, it's
um
fascinating. It's
yeah, it really
fascinating.
is fascinating. And so the physical mediumship in the last, say, 4 years for me has been new. So I'm not an expert at physical mediumship, but I have a lot of experiences with it, and I've
Yes.
had a lot of experiences with it personally. I realized when I went to Lilydale last year, I was at Susan Barnes, and I went into the cabinet for the third time, and we had I went into trance, and we had apports come
You did.
afterwards from the ceiling. Yeah, and it was really quite amazing.
Okay, okay. So describe what apports are for people that heard that word for the first time.
Well, apports are manifestations from the spirit world. A lot of times they can come as, gems. Well, they can come in a lot of different variations. They could come as a basket of flowers, but the spirit world basically creates the physical elements and brings them through in the spirit world in the manifestation through the medium.
Yeah.
So the medium basically holds the power, and during that, the participants help support the medium energetically. So yeah,
It's
so I
so
had
cool.
apports come down. There was two. It was a British coin from 1942, and then I had an amethyst gem that was cut so specifically. It was just really beautiful. And we had a few more that came down from the ceiling, but we couldn't find them. So I don't know if they dissipated or if they landed in a planter or whatever. But the lights were on when this was happening, by the way.
Wow. Okay, so that's something different too, because it's usually in a dark room or a room with a red light.
Yeah, well, we had originally we had the lights were dimmed, and we did have a red light over my face while I was in trance in the cabinet. But then after I came out of trance, I was drinking water. They assisted me to the chair, to another chair, I should say, and I was seated, and then the lights came on. And I would say maybe about 3 minutes after I was seated there, and we were just talking about my experience, and actually Spirit spoke through me with direct voice, which was pretty amazing. And all of a sudden, we started hearing these pings, and the lights were on, and everybody's like, oh my God. So it was very exciting and exhilarating. And I was still kind of, you know, processing the whole thing, but also kind of getting back into my feelers of my body, I should say, from that
Yeah,
experience.
yeah,
I mean, because you go into an altered state in trance, and it just takes a while, and that altered state is just allowing your mind to get out of the way in the deepest form,
yeah.
in mediumship.
I have not seen it personally. I am very familiar with all of that work, with all the people that we know, the familiar people that we know. I watched Tony Stockwell I was with him at Arthur Finley, and I watched him with the trans configuration where his face started to morph and spirit was coming, and it's incredible, and it sounds so fantastical or so Harry Potter or yeah, it's so hard to describe it. To experience it is just a next level.
It sure is.
It's just amazing. And I'm
I,
so like I love what you said earlier about how this has been recent development for you. And because it's true. This work, it is a constant evolution. We are always unfolding. We are always developing. We are, yeah. Yeah, I really didn't realize this is where this conversation was going to go, but I love it. And I think that's amazing.
well, thank you. I too experienced Tony Stockwell as well, not only at Arthur Finley College, but at Omega. And his transfiguration is really amazing. It's a full hour's worth. And through that experience, I had seen several relatives of mine that have been in spirit come through on stage from Tony, and I was only 20 feet away from him. And I could recognize every single, spirit, and they came to life, which was, can't you? I mean, Jeffrey, I know that you experienced this, but it's amazing when you see them come to life, and the face changes, the ears change, the hairline, and the collar line of what they wore when they had passed.
Yeah.
It's just amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. It's
It's hard to
it
describe.
is so hard to describe, and there really aren't any words to describe how fantastic or incredible or miraculous, or I mean, what word encapsulates all that is happening in front of your face,
Yes.
literally for real. Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
And you're right. There's an unfoldment from the spirit world, and depending on where if any of your listeners are, you're constantly learning from the spirit world, and you're constantly learning about yourself, and they're teaching you as you're going along, which is just incredible. And it's just one of these things that I never thought, first of all, I would do in my life, because I never thought of myself as a medium. And secondly, it's changed my life. It's made it more fulfilling, and I'm just very passionate about it.
Oh yeah, yeah. You are speaking my language. I totally get it. So, so since you're talking about how your life is and how it's changed, give us a little rundown. Like, what was life like before? Have you always been connected to spirit? Have you always recognized spirit? Has there always been a conscious knowing, or like, what was that like for you?
Well, yes, I would. That's the answer there. I started experiencing these things as a child, roughly around 4 or 5 years old. And I remember my mother coming outside and saying to me, like, why are you looking at the sky? Like, what are you looking at? And I would be just laying on my back in the grass on a blanket, or whatever, looking up at the sky. And she was just like, what are you looking at? And I'm like, I'm not really sure. And I didn't really know how to explain it, really. But yeah, I've had visitations as a child from spirit, and then as a teenager as well. And then for a while there in my later teens, early, probably up to about 20 years old, it kind of stopped for a while. And I think I needed to kind of live my teenage life, and I think spirit needed to say, hey, Anthony, you got to live your physical life and
Sure.
have different experiences. Um, and then the lights flickered in here. And then right when I was around probably 21, they started to come back into my life. And at that time I had already started to go into the hair industry and cosmetology. And through that whole process of 45 years being in cosmetology, spirit made itself present more and more each time. And it would come to a point where I'd have a complete stranger in my chair, and I would hear from their spirit loved ones while I'm listening to them talk. So I'm hearing two conversations at the same time. They're
Sure.
talking about their hair, and I'm hearing from spirit about their family and their dynamics and their family, and her history and stuff. And then I would hear it being replayed from her telling, just like a bartender, hairdressers, we hear about people's personal experiences and their lives. And you would hear about her grandmother, who is very close to her, who I was speaking with just a few minutes ago.
Do you
So it
see
was
that?
just for, I didn't. Oh, yes, I do.
A spirit.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
sorry to interrupt you, but yeah, yeah,
Oh, my goodness.
they're my little paranormal lights. When spirit gets close to them, they light up. There, look, there it goes.
Oh, wow. How wonderful. That's really cool.
So when you're talking about what you're talking about, this is their way of like putting an exclamation point on the point and the experience and everything that you're talking about. So, but anyway,
Okay. Well,
sorry, go ahead.
that's all right. Well, I had to say the stereo just turned back on again.
Oh, of course it did. Spirit is in the house. Oh my God.
For our viewers, I had the spirit turned on the stereo earlier, and I turned it off physically before because I don't have any interruptions. And here they turned it back on again. So if any music starts playing all of a sudden, you'll know why. That's
Oh,
hilarious.
that's so funny.
Anyhow, so yeah, so I was hearing this being repeated through clients of information that I heard, momentarily through the process of interviewing a client of their needs. And so it gave me the inspiration, the research and the curiosity to find out why this was happening to me, because it wasn't happening to other hairdressers, let me tell you.
Hmm.
And I would share my information, and they're like, gosh, you've got to go see a medium. I bet they'll tell you a lot of information about yourself. And that was the first time a medium had said to me, Anthony, you're a medium and you don't even know it.
How old were you?
Oh gosh, I would say I was in my 30s
Okay, okay,
when I was first told I was a medium. I didn't even know what a medium was. I knew people were psychic, but had no idea about mediumship.
sure.
And so she said to me, you're going to be doing this work later on in life, and the spirit world's preparing you for your work. So all your experiences and your tribulations and your traumas, that is to get you prepared to work with spirit and to work with the public and be able to heal, give back, and give compassion and love and healing to your clients. And that stuck with me so long. And I still was in denial because I was a very analytical person. And at this point, I had my own business. I've been self-employed for 37 years. And I was just a very analytical person and felt
Yeah.
like I had to take charge of my life. Boy, was it a huge experience to realize that spirit is guiding you more and you're not really in charge.
Totally. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
So my next big reading with a medium was through Michelle White Dove, who unfortunately passed a couple years ago.
Yes. I
But
remember her.
yeah, and I was living in Florida at the time, actually 20, 21 years ago, and she had told me about Michelle White Dove, and so I had a reading with her, and she said to me, you're going to be doing this professionally in 10 years, and I said to her, you're full of it. I'm not doing
No, I'm
this.
not. Yeah.
Well, here I am.
Yes.
So that's the story, really. You kind of have to laugh at yourself. I mean, the spirit world has a good sense of humor. It
Yeah.
really does. Oh, yep, they're blinking back there, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah. When we were laughing about how spirit has the sense of humor and taking us where we are supposed to go. It's so true. I opened up in 2006 when I became attuned to the Reiki. And the side effect for me was it literally ignited all the spiritual senses over that one first weekend, right? So through that, my Reiki master said, you're going to be a huge channel one day. I'm all, no, I'm not. She's like, yeah, oh yeah, you will. I'm all, no, I'm not. Like, no, no, I didn't buy it. I didn't buy it for years. Even when the mediumship, the evidence was pouring out of my face, I was like, no, I must be a good guesser. I just must be a good guesser. I'm not. I totally get
That
it. Oh God.
it's normal. I think it's normal for anyone who develops their mediumship to have that lack of confidence, that second guessing, and I think also, you know, the world programs us to worry about what other people think
Oh,
and how we fit in with those different tribes, whether it be professionally or family or friends, community. And that holds us back from growing. It really does. It holds us back from being our true selves. And so I say to all of you viewers out there that if you are having these gifts, you really need to research them. Research a good medium to learn from, first of
mhm,
all,
mhm,
because not to be negative, but you do need to be picky about who you're going to go study with. And you want to take this work seriously because it's very sacred. There's a big responsibility with working with the spirit world and the lives of the spirit world because they're still alive. They're just in a different dimension. And then you're working with clients and their personal lives and traumas and their sensitivities, discretion, and so it's sacred, and there's the responsibility in the spirit world and the responsibility with the physical world. And like I said, you're dealing with the spirit world, which is connected to the divine consciousness of God, creator, infinite source, however you believe. It is that divine preciousness, and you must take it very seriously.
mhm. Yep.
That's how I look at
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
it.
100%. Yeah. Okay. So this medium told you this in your 30s,
Yes.
and that was like 5 years ago. So then what happened?
I wish it was 5 years ago. I'm going to be 61 this year.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
yes. Oh my gosh. That's what I say every morning.
Seriously, you don't look more than 45, 46, 48. I mean,
Oh,
no, I would have never thought that.
oh, thank you.
Yeah. So what happened next?
So yeah, so I decided that I was going to take more classes while I was living in Florida, and I did just that. And so what happened was a few years later, I moved to Asheville in 2001.
Okay.
And well, I'm sorry, 2003, excuse me. And I found a local medium who had studied with Tony Stockwell and Mavis Pittilla and
Excellent.
John Holland.
Excellent.
And yeah, and she propelled me. She's like, you're a medium. Unfortunately, I moved to an area that was not allowing readings or tattoos by law. You could not do it. And I thought to myself, you've got to be
Wait,
kidding me.
for real?
Yes, for real. When I moved to the Asheville area 21 years ago, that was a law. Yep.
You couldn't get tattoos?
You couldn't get tattoos in the county that I lived in, which was Buncombe County, and you couldn't get a psychic
You
reading
couldn't
or
get a psych.
mediumistic reading. Yep.
Oh, wow.
I
Okay.
know.
I've never heard of that. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I know. I did neither. And I thought to myself, oh, great. Only me would move to a place, where you could do this. And so I was forced to go back into my hair industry. And because it's what I knew and what I did best. And it provided me to pay my bills. So I opened up my salon on Wall Street in downtown Asheville. And through that process, through the 10 years, actually 12 years of me being downtown, I really dove hard into the educational field. After studying with Jill Jackson, who I was mentioning earlier, she moved away but propelled me to go work with James von Praagh. So I studied with
Wonderful.
James. Yeah, he's great. He's got such a great sense of humor, and he's so passionate about what he does in his teaching. And so I went to Omega, studied with James with several classes, and then did his certification. Through that, I think I studied with 3 or 4 practitioners on site probably every year. So I had 4 major educational seminars that I would be taking. So I went into it for 7 years straight with hardcore education because I thought some spirits like you've got to do this. And I had the money to do it.
Mhm.
And I was still working, doing hair at the same time in between all these workshops. But I went to go study with Tony Stockwell and then Mavis Pittilla with all her workshops in Orlando. And then that led me to go to Arthur Findlay College, which is the prestigious psychic science college in Stansted, England, and studied with Tony and Simone Key and
Oh, I love
Lynn
Simone.
Probert.
I love
And
Lynn.
I know, aren't they great? And
Ah,
who else? Who else? Oh, and Kitty Wood. Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And that in itself was a turning point in my mediumship. There's a story behind it I have to share with you because
Please.
I think that from a realistic point of view, every person who decides to work in this, healing process, whether it be mediumship or another modality of healing, we have our doubts. We have our times where we fall off our pedestal, and it is an emotional crisis when it happens because you get yourself in this spiral and it
Oh,
it, it only goes down.
yep.
And what happens is you have to pick yourself up and say to yourself, I have to just do the best I can possibly be for where I am now. Take yourself out of the emotional element. So I went to Arthur Findlay College. I got there a couple days in Stansted beforehand because I like to get myself prepared, rested, prepared energetically to work,
Oh
right?
yeah. Well, that time change, like the first day I'm there, I'm toast. So yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah. So it might have been 2 or 3 days. So I felt like I was really prepared to start my course. And so the day that I got there was all of a sudden it became 95 degrees with 100% humidity. And this was in the beginning of
Oh,
June.
oh boy.
So very unusual warm weather we were having. And for any of you that have been to Arthur Findlay, you can't wear jeans and printed t-shirts. You have to wear a nice shirt, some, khakis or nice pants, and come dressed accordingly. You have to look professional. So there's no air conditioning at Arthur Findlay College, which was a surprise to me, but a historic building because it was, built, I think,
Yeah.
in the late 1800s. Yes.
Mhm.
And, they keep the historic preservation. So there's only screens on some of the windows, and they don't have fans in every single dorm room. And so I walked in and felt like I was, perspiring and hot, and they get you right to work the first day you're there. You have a class in the evening. It's like there's no, fooling around. And I remember getting into the elevator, and Simone Key was there, and she was all hot and flustered from the heat, and she had her bags, and I helped her, carry them into the elevator. And at this point, I didn't even know who she was. So I just thought she was this poor soul who was, overwhelmed and hot, right?
Yep. Yep.
And anyhow, it's just so happens that my room was above the kitchen. Now, Arthur Findlay College, I think, can host about 300 students, close to that, anyways, 260 to 300 students, I think, at one time. So it's like a small Downton Abbey, to be honest with you. And we call it the Hogwarts, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like the Hogwarts for mediumship.
Yeah.
And anyway, not to get too much detail, but I didn't get much sleep the first night at all, maybe 2 hours of sleep. Well, my first day of evidential mediumship, and I had to get up on a platform. I could not connect because I was so exhausted from not sleeping and
Yeah.
hot. There was no fans in the room, and I couldn't connect.
Yeah.
I just couldn't connect. And I was devastated because here are all these people, are my peers sitting there, right? 60 some people in the class, and some of them are better than I am. I know they're better than I am. There's always somebody there better than you. And I thought, oh my gosh, I can't connect. I had to step down. It was very embarrassing.
Yeah.
So through the course of the day, I went back to my room during a break, and I actually started to cry because
Mhm.
I thought, oh my
I don't
gosh,
blame you. I would have too. Mhm.
I was devastated emotionally.
Yep. Yep.
And uh, after about 10 minutes, I threw some cold water on my face and put my big boy pants on and went back down there and said, I'm going to be the best I can possibly be.
Mhm.
I'm going to learn as much as I can learn. And if I can't demonstrate mediumship while I'm here at Arthur Findlay, it's what it is,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. Yep.
But there was a point that I thought, I'm going to pack my stuff up and go home. There was, right? In my tears. The next day, I got up and I said, I'm going to raise my hand first and I'm going to knock this out of the park. And I raised my hand and I got a great response on and an applause on me doing evidential mediumship on
Yes.
platform. So my encouragement to the story for your listeners is that we have our ups and downs in mediumship, and it humbles us. It brings us back to earth. And sometimes you have to just step yourself outside the emotional element of it and say, what is it that I need to learn from this experience? And obviously, there'll be something I will be learning. If it's not about others and how they work, it's about myself.
Yeah. Yes.
Mhm. Or both.
Absolutely. And it doesn't just happen at the beginning. It happens throughout.
It
I
does.
mean, you've been doing this for, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, however many years. And there are periods throughout where it feels like we are hearing crickets in the back corner. And you're like, well, where is everybody? And yeah, yeah, it's a constant evolution.
Well, Jeffrey, if just remembering from what we learned from our tutors, instructors, teachers, however you describe that, they always say when there's that quiet moment in our mediumship where we're saying, oh my gosh, where are my clients? Where are they? There is another unfoldment going on, and you're still downloading things without realizing it.
Yes.
You're still
Agreed.
growing in the
Mhm.
silence.
Yep.
So be patient.
100%. That's absolutely it. That's what I have found in the years that I've been doing this, that these quiet moments, we're being leveled up in a way that we can't even really recognize. And we're meant to be in the silence and in the feeling like we're not even moving moments. But in
Right.
truth, we actually are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's more going on there than what we realize.
Yeah.
And it's an unfoldment of your mediumship and your personal life at the
Yeah.
same time. Hmm.
What did you find challenging? Like, what did you struggle with? What was most difficult throughout this?
I would say it's probably my confidence.
Mhm.
My confidence was holding me back in disbelief of why me.
Mhm.
I think that's normal for everyone that this happens to.
Mhm.
You know, I just feel that if you're going into mediumship because you think it's cool and you think it's, you know, you want to be a celebrity, you're going into this for the wrong reason because there's a spiritual path that's associated with this. There's the seriousness, there's the inspiration, there's the science behind it. You know, it's physics. We're all dealing with energy and
Yeah.
vibrations,
Yeah.
and everything is energy and vibrations. So why would you go into it for other reasons?
Mhm.
And I think that's going to keep your integrity at a humble point in your life by looking at why you're doing this type of work.
Yeah.
It should be to be loving and giving to other people. It should be helping other people in the physical world.
Mhm.
And it should be an upliftment to others, not only to your clients, but to your colleagues too. I mean, you know,
Mhm.
there's one thing that I see in every profession besides mediumship, and that is a competition feeling of desperation where someone has to sabotage somebody else's positive experience,
Yes.
success, happiness,
Yep.
and people can be jealous, you know, of this. And this happens in every profession. My word and advice to listeners would be to stay in your integrity, to stay in your truth of who you are, and always come from your loving heart place with doing this work.
Absolutely. You know, this is how I'm in service. You know, this is how I'm in service to others, to people, to colleagues, to spirit. You know, this is how you're right. I mean, it is about healing. It's about uplifting. It's about providing and inspiring hope and realizing that, you know, we are so much more than this bag and this physical matter inside the skull. You know, I mean, this is just the compute the hard drive. This is the computer. You know, all of this out
Exactly.
here is the, you know, this is these are the apps. You know.
That's right. That's a
and
good way of looking at it
and
from analogy.
yeah, we're so connected to each other,
Hmm.
every single one of us, through all of these spiritual apps, so to speak. You know, we're all connected. We are all one. There's no way we can't be. We are all fundamentally, first and foremost, that spiritual, unlimited, divine presence. And to be able to touch people in a way that does inspire curiosity for their own spiritual essence is like, how can I help, you know? How can I help? And it's just, it's so beautiful to watch the light in someone start to spark, and then that
Hmm.
pilot light comes on, and then it starts to grow, and it's just awesome.
It is, and their face changes too.
Yeah, yeah.
Their whole demeanor, their whole auric energy around them changes. And boy, that's the most fulfilling feeling as a healer to be able to give to someone.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. And all we're doing is just providing the space. We're just holding the space. And, you know, they're the ones that are just really like activating everything in their
Right,
insides, you know, and it's just,
right. Well,
it's,
it's
it
the
is, it's
spirit.
an
Like I always tell people, like people say, "Oh, your gifts are just so amazing," and I'll say, "Well, I have my abilities, but the gifts are really from the spirit world
honor.
because that's the spirit world gift is flowing through you to give, you know, to your client or your recipient. So it's a heart to heart communication. It's their heart to your heart and then to the heart of the recipient at the same
Yes.
time.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh,
It's beautiful, isn't it?
it is beautiful. It's just it's so touching and it's so encouraging. So what's next for you?
So, back to my teaching, we're going to be covering a lot of different modalities in the metaphysical medley coming up June the 16th through the 20th at Lilydale. For those of you who are interested in coming, please join us. Even if you don't have experience in this, find out what works for you. Find out the discovery of, gosh, I never knew I could do this.
Mhm.
Because I teach this regularly. I teach evidential mediumship regularly, locally here in the United States, but in Canada. And I find my students that have never done mediumship before or psychic development are always in an aha moment leaving going, I never knew I could actually give messages, right? And it's just surrendering. It's surrendering and discovering and having fun with it at the same time. Yes, there's a seriousness, but at the beginning, you're just trying is what it is. I'm going to try this. I'm
Mhm.
going to try this over here. And it gives the students that ability to do that. Now, Susan Barnes did the conference last year, and it was a huge success. People are still talking about it today because we had such a great time. And this year, she heads it up as well. I'll be working with Lisa Mendel and Trisha Worcester Best. And let's see, Julie Andriani, as I'm pronouncing that correct, and Michael Shane, who are physical mediumships, are physical mediums, excuse me. I know, I can't spit it out. And myself. So there'll be six of us teaching for that conference. The
And
following weekend, that our conference ends on that Friday, that's when the opening weekend at Lilydale starts. It's open to the general public. So, we'll have Lilydale to ourselves for this conference because it's prior to opening weekend.
oh,
Now, the
that's
following
awesome.
week, I'll be teaching I have a cheat sheet. I'm tapping into your intuitive abilities, which is a psychic development course, level 1 for people who want to learn the foundation of how to work psychically. And you'll be doing exercises with other students in the class to enhance that. And I'll be there to energetically support you and give constructive criticism to get you into the right space. And that is June the 24th, which is on a Monday. And then my next class is Opening the Door to Spirit, which is Wednesday, June the 26th. And that is an intro class to mediumship. So if you've already had some psychic development classes or not, and you still want to know how mediumship works, come and see me because I'm going to teach you the foundations of mediumship, the science behind it, the responsibility and the ethics behind it as well. Plus, you're going to be doing exercises in the class as well. So you'll be working, in tandems of two and coming to your discovery of what you can do. So come join me. Yeah.
I love that you teach the science behind it because for me, like you were talking how analytical you are, me too. Understanding the physics behind it, the energetic science behind it, the energetics, the physical realness in what is really taking place was everything for me. I was like, oh, it makes sense now. I get it.
Yes.
And
And I
that
didn't
was the
know I
key
was a
for me.
geek.
Yeah,
And I didn't know I was a geek.
totally, totally. I mean, I have this book up here called The Tao of Physics,
Hmm.
and because it's absolutely fascinating because it's so real.
It is very real. There's a
Mhm.
huge science behind it, and that everything on the planet's energy. Our
Yeah,
planet is energy. When we breathe in, we're breathing in the planet's energy.
yeah.
The sun is has its own aura, and that aura is distributed on our planet so that we're allowed to, grow the things that we need to grow and to feed us and to be able for us to survive and live on this planet. So everything is energetic universally, universally. That's how I look at it.
Mhm.
And that's the most fascinating part of it.
Yeah, it's true. And what I love too is that these physicists, the quantum physicists, those super sciencey people are getting closer and closer and closer. They're, I love all the work that's being done in the universities. Dr. Gary Schwartz, the recognizing all the blind tests with mediums, the quintuple blind tests. They know they can prove that something is happening. What's actually happening, they're just trying to figure out, but they can prove there's something happening. And it's just like they're just getting closer and they're getting closer. And it's awesome.
Yeah, there are several colleges that are offering programs. VCU offers in Virginia, offers Charlottesville, Virginia, offers a whole psychic science program, which is, in the development of psychic science, which is really fascinating.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, our founding fathers to our country were very much into, the whole psychic science behind it and the energy behind natural law,
Mm-hmm.
which is very fascinating in itself.
Yeah.
Natural law is so much part of mediumship and spiritualism.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know what spiritualism is, it started in the, mid 1800s. So it's been here for 150 years, and Lilydale is where I'll be teaching this year, is the oldest and largest spiritualist community. And spiritualism started in New York, upstate New York, to be exact. And it's just a very spiritual and energetic place. If you've never been there to Lilydale, the minute you walk in the doors, it's just so great. The energy is just beautiful, and
Yeah.
it's all, the majority of the homes are Victorian. So you get this time period of taking you back to a different time, and it's very low key and relaxing.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. It's on my bucket list. I haven't been there
Yeah. Oh,
yet,
you
but
haven't been?
no, it's on my bucket list. And I know I have so many friends who have been there, who have taught there. Yeah. And I love what you said about the energy there, because it's like Arthur Finley. It's like walking into those doors. That spiritual Wi-Fi is next level, you know,
It
and
it really
you
is.
like you can't not be connected. It's like that. It's wow. And I imagine that to be like Lilydale as well.
It truly is. It's exactly how you've described it. It's like a spiritual Wi-Fi.
Hmm.
And the history of Lilydale, I mean, these were, forefront thinkers of practicing mediumship when our world in the mid 1800s was very different than it is today. So these people were very brave to go forward and, share their spiritual experiences and work towards the mediumship of unfolding in physical mediumship, because that was the highlight at that time. They're also so important to American history that most Americans do not know about. So Susan B. Anthony she was not a spiritualist, but she visited Lilydale on a regular basis, and she was part of that suffragist movement, of the women's voting movement. And at the time, women couldn't speak on a platform. They couldn't get a divorce from their husband. They didn't have a voice. They couldn't own property. They couldn't inherit property. There was a lot going on there.
Yeah.
And the suffragist movement brought that to Lilydale by an accident of a snowstorm, and the two emerged together. And the beautiful thing that happened was that the spiritualist churches embraced the suffragist movement, because in spiritualism, which is, the religion there, they believe that women are equal to men. And so we look at each other from a spirit perspective. You're a spirit and I'm a spirit, so you have just as much power and um, voice and rights as I do, and I see you as my equal. And those spiritualist churches across the country, and at the time there was like 30% spiritualist churches across the United States. And it was prior to the Civil War and slightly after the Civil War as well that this movement was happening. And um, they supported the suffragist movement. And so they went from one spiritualist church to the other across the country. And that's how we developed the women's movement for rights, for equal rights, and the abolishment of
Interesting.
slavery. Yeah.
Very
The abolishment of
interesting.
slavery, too. Yeah. And President Lincoln is the first president to bring a medium or a professional medium to the White House. And the signing of what's the signing that he did? I'm sorry, the proclamation.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes,
Yes,
yes, during the Civil War, to
hmm
make that decision, the medium told him, "You must sign this document. It's going to change the world forever." And she was absolutely right. Now, I don't remember the name of the medium because I'm terrible with names, but you all can, that'll give everyone a history lesson to go look it up.
yes.
But let's see, where was I going to go with this? So President Lincoln, his wife was a spiritualist, and Mary Todd, and she was good friends with the Vanderbilts. And we have the Vanderbilt house, the Biltmore house here. And George
Yes,
Vanderbilt's wife was a spiritualist. And so they were very good, close friends. And a lot of people don't know that in history as well. But it's just the history behind it is just amazing.
it's
And
rich.
yes. And so you all, for your listeners, if you want to know a little bit more about American history and spiritualism, we all need to bring it kind of back into the forefront, because some of the things that we're dealing with right now in our physical world, they were dealing with 150 years ago. And so some people are trying to bring that way of thinking back. So it is very important to know our history.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay.
hmm I have one more question for you, Anthony. But before I
Yes.
ask you, tell everybody where they can find you, your socials, your website, your all that good stuff.
Yes. My website is asheville.medium.com. So you can read all about me there. I have an upcoming events page for 2024 there, which posts all my classes and upcoming events. I do, let's say on Facebook, I have Anthony R. Mikolojeski, and you can find me there on Facebook. And then on Instagram, it's Asheville Medium. That's on my Instagram page. You can find me on my professional Google business page was under Anthony Mikolojeski Psychic Medium. I have reviews there as well, and I do post my classes on there as well. And I do host a mediumship circle once a month in my home. Some of my students attend, and they travel far distances to come to my mediumship circles, which I'm very honored about. And then I have people who are first timers too. So come join me and come read about me. And hopefully I'll get a chance to meet some of you.
Awesome. Thank you for all the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Very, very inspiring.
I love it. I truly love what I do. And it's, the spirit world and our world is very fluid. And I just feel that I feel them around me all the time. And it's a beautiful and loving energy.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Speaking of very beautiful and loving energy, how do you experience the divine?
How do I experience it? You mean from a personal level or
hmm
how I work?
From personal level.
How, how do I experience it? I experience it from my soul and my intention behind what I do in the world. I think if you're not putting your passion, your empathy, and your honesty into what you do, I think there's when you lose a few of those components, I feel that you have self-doubt though in how you can connect spiritually. I don't know. Does that make sense to you?
hmm hmm
And so, you do we as mediums, we make mistakes just like every other human. And we have our ups and downs. And that's to remember that we are humble as souls. But I know that the next day when I wake up, if I made a mistake, I know that tomorrow I'm going to learn from that mistake about maybe what I could have done differently and say, I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to be a better person than I was yesterday.
Right.
And I think that stands behind how I believe in the divine, because we're ever growing, ever learning, and we will continue to learn on this earth school. But when we transition to spirit, in the spirit world, we're going to continue to grow and learn there too. So that's just part of our makeup. So that's how I connect and relate to the divine.
Beautiful. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
Just it's so great to finally meet you and connect with you in this way and share with everybody out there who needs to hear this. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor to be here, and I enjoy your shows, Jeffrey. It's just I've been watching you, and you're great at what you do, and I hope someday I get a chance to meet you in person.
You will. You absolutely will. I'm definitely making my way out to the East Coast, and I was thinking about that earlier when when you were talking. I was actually visualizing that. So,
Well, maybe, we could do a platform or a conference or something together. That would be nice.
it'd be a
I love to
yes.
travel, and that's one of my inspirations is to maybe do more traveling,
Okay.
teaching, and helping.
Whoa. I have some ideas.
Okay.
All right, you guys, you've been watching another episode of Something Super Spiritual. Thank you so much for being here with us, and we'll be seeing you on the next live stream. Thank you again for listening to the Something Super Spiritual podcast. If you know someone who would enjoy this episode, please do share it with a friend. For show notes, links, and to purchase a mediumship reading, my website is somethingsuperspiritual.com. You can also easily subscribe and follow the show on your favorite app, sign up for my newsletter for bonus content, and to keep the conversation going, you can easily join the Facebook community. It's all right there at the website, somethingsuperspiritual.com. Signing off for now, namaste.